Hello, my friends. Eric Feltus here, life coach, speaker, actor, and host of The Great Unbecoming. This is a show about stories of unlearning. What did you let go of in order to become the person you are today? And what did you gain and learn as well? This is a show about letting go of stories that no longer serve us and stepping into our own authenticity. It's about unbecoming what society says you should be and remembering who you are and who you are meant to be. So sit back, relax, and welcome to The Great Unbecoming. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of The Great Unbecoming. I'm so excited to introduce my guest, but before I do that, we have a couple of announcements, y'all. We have our very first Life Coaching by Feltus shame-free retreat for LGBTQ plus men, September 21st to the 24th. Y'all, this is going to be amazing. It's at Camp Wrightwood in Wrightwood, California. And it's only $5.99. The price $5.99 gets you all meals, 8 meals, 3-night stay, yoga, breath work, so much fun stuff, campfires. It's going to be amazing. If you want any information on this retreat, if you are craving community with other gay, bi, trans, queer people who identify as male, you are welcome in this space, and we cannot wait to talk to you about it. So you can message me on Instagram, Eric Feltus. You can also email me, eric@lifecoachingbyfeltus.com, and I would love to talk to you about that. Okay, you can hear I'm giddy because I'm super excited to introduce my guest, Danny Cords. Y'all, Danny Cords he currently serves as an organizational psychology consultant. Danny first began their career leveraging storytelling, speaking about their personal experience with sexual orientation change efforts, of which Danny experienced as a youth in Washington State. Danny's work explores the concept of embracing resilience over reaction, which they used to help ban state-sanctioned sexual orientation efforts for minors in Washington State. Danny's story has been featured in various media outlets, including USA Today, Huffington Post, KNKX, the Seattle Times, and the 2020 Cannes Jury award-winning film, Unconverting. Danny now holds a Master's of Education, oh my gosh, so do I, in both organizational behavior and adult education, and is a Newman Civic Fellow. And he's also my friend, and he is also a survivor of stalking. And today, if you listen to our trailer, you heard a little bit about this, but we're going to get into Danny's experience with a stalker and what that was like. So Danny, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for joining us. How are you feeling, my friend?
So wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on. It's good to see you live. That retreat sounds amazing. That price point is amazing. Can I just say, as a consultant, I love it. I want to go.
Isn't it crazy? Well, you can come if you want.
It's so good. I can't wait. Especially when you said the meals were included. I was like, yeah.
Right? 8 meals plus everything else for $5.99. And y'all, if you go through our 10-week program, the price actually drops down to $349. If you're in my leadership program, the price is $199. So y'all, I'm not here to make money on this. I'm here to get good people together and give us a place for us to be seen, safe, and celebrated as and because of who we are. That's what we do here. Community builders like you, Danny.
Talk about heart work and life's work and purpose. Love it.
Y'all, if you're joining us on YouTube right now, you already noticed that Danny and I are dressed like we're both in long sleeve black. This is not planned. We just are always in sync.
I mean, do you have these beads too? I took them off.
Oh, I don't have them on me, but I do have them. Can we first, before we get into your story, can we first talk about how we know each other?
Sure.
So my first thing, this is what I remember. Someone tagged me. So, you know, I'm on TikTok and Instagram, and someone tagged me in one of Danny's TikTok posts where he was talking about conversion therapy, and he was talking about his experience in this documentary about conversion therapy and how it was just included in the Cannes Festival, and that he was going to go to the Cannes Festival. The video. So I think someone tagged me because they thought maybe I might be able to help him. I watched the video, and there was several things I thought. A, this is an extremely handsome person. B, I was so attracted to your vulnerability in the video. And I just wanted to connect with you to see if and how I could help you. Very quickly after connecting with you, I recognized that you're not right for this 10-week program. You have done the work, right? So then I was like, how about instead of, being my client, can we just jump to being friends? And the rest is history. And truly, Danny and I talk all the time. We talk on Marco Polo. We text each other, and we have become such good friends. And of course, they're still attractive, but also we're more like sisters than anything else. And I just love you. I'm so grateful that you were in my life, and that I just so value our conversations. I so value the friendship that we have created over the year plus.
Well, shoot, this is already my favorite interview that I've ever done. I love you too. And listen, my TikTok, if you find me out there, it's not that hard. It's just my name, or something variation there. And it's me singing, except for this like little fraction of me talking about conversion therapy, unconverting. And yeah, this person who is, I think is associated with another film or something, tags you. I don't know. We start chatting, and I feel like it was like 2 weeks until the festival, and I was calling you, Marco Poloing you, because I was abroad every single day, especially when I was on my runs, and we would have these, hour-long conversations about vulnerability. Do you remember that?
Of course, we still do it.
I know. It's been amazing. We've lived together. You think about it. We've lived so much life, both of us. Our careers have evolved. We've grown. We've built a little community between the two of us.
And yet to meet in person, which of course, it's bittersweet. Like, I don't like that, but also I love it because we still know each other so well. And we have formed this friendship. Vulnerability is the word. We formed this friendship where truly I feel as if we can tell each other anything. And as queer men, I think it's not always easy to find that sense of community. I mean, I haven't always felt that way about people. So I'm just glad that we have that for each other.
I'm already getting emotional. A couple points I've already started to feel like the feels. And that's because it's so true. I heard this really tragic sentiment from a friend. I think I texted this to you, and I love it. So I'll share it here as well. And the parents aren't quite on board with his life, with who he is, his identity as a gay man. And he said, I just don't feel comfortable sharing my full self with them, because the moment that something that isn't perfect comes up, they're going to blame it to who I am. Say it's my gay. I can certainly relate to that. So the more that we get these relationships like you and I share, where we can truly, I do tell you everything. And I think I tell you everything. And I think I tell my best friend, Amy and Lisa, everything. That's about it.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. That is a beautiful gift.
I mean, that's what belonging is, right? I always say this, but I'll say it again. It's the feeling of being seen, safe, and celebrated, not in spite of who you are, but as and because of who you are. And there's never been a moment in our friendship where either of us, and it takes courage to share those things. I think you and I both stepped into our courage in order to have that sense of belonging with one another. And it's costly. And wow, is it worth the investment when you can find someone that hears what you feel might bring you shame and say, thank you for sharing that with me. I feel like I know you better now, and doesn't see it in the same way of shame that you might. I mean, shame hates to be seen, right?
Amen.
I think that we've brought shame to the altar, for lack of a better word, and it's helped us to love ourselves better through seeing and loving each other better.
Can I just, for those that aren't watching the video, I just want to say, I keep this next to me all the time. It says, shame-free gay life.
Pride last year, I sent Danny a button with our Shame-Free Gay Life logo on it.
I keep it right here.
Good.
I keep it
so glad.
always out.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay. There's so much, Danny, that we could talk about. I have to have you back to talk about conversion therapy, your experience there. I'd love to talk to you about what you do in diversity and inclusion, especially the more I get into consulting in that arena. But your story of your stalker is so fascinating to me. And I want to be careful because even in the trailer, I mentioned we even have a story of someone with a stalker. I want to make, I don't want it to sound like it's like a made for TV, like Lifetime movie. Like, I don't want to cheapen your experience. And I know that we're laughing and we're giggling and we're just being you and I, how we always are together. But I want to take a moment to breathe, because this is actually really, we can be lighthearted about it, but it's obviously a very serious thing. I mean, before our call, just preparing for our call, I just did a very tiny bit of research. I went to the Department of Justice website, and this is information from 2019, which is telling for a couple things. Thing number one, the fact that there isn't more information since then is mind-blowing to me. But the information I saw was that in 2019, 3.4 million people, 16 and over, were victims of having a stalker, of a stalker. Only 29% of all victims reported it to the police. And this one gets me, 67% of victims are afraid of having their lives ended because of this. So this is a serious thing that, Danny, quite frankly, I don't know a lot about. So I'm going to lean on you for this. I want to hear your story. And as I always say, you start from wherever you want, and I will rudely interrupt as we go along. How does that sound?
Bring it on. I love it. And to those statistics, again, it's, that's who gets the report made. That's the people that speak up are vulnerable. And there's so many people that live in the shadows that don't. So, it's funny, kind of like, I say, choose resilience over reaction in my work. And that's us, taking a beat, taking a breath, and trying not to lose ourselves to the panic, the amygdala hijack, but to pause and say, okay, right, wrong, or indifferent, good or bad, this is where I'm at today. Where do I go from here? And what can I tap into from my past to keep moving forward? So, conversion therapy, stalking, all of these things coming into play here as we move ahead. But when I talk about it, another commonality here is that, like conversion therapy, some of the room doesn't know this is a problem, and much of the room has been through it or is going through it right now. The thing is that 2020, I want to say, is when my stalker ended up going to prison. Spoiler alert. And to this day, I still get emails from very few interviews that I've done about people who are currently going through specifically cyber stalking. And so I want to, there's stalking. That's where the people are, physically in your space. And then there's cyber stalking, which I've referred to as a ghost in your pocket, because as much as we don't want to be, our technology, the computers, the phone that you're listening on right now can be used against you. And this is actually my third phone and third phone number from my stalker, because that's what it took. And he still got through to this, even to this day. Sometimes
wow,
it's something where I'm just on edge, whether I know it's him or not, thinking about this. So to back up and tell the story is, I have to start and talk about my ex-husband, because I was married for a while. And, we're not here to talk about conversion therapy, but it's part of my history. And what was also part of my history as a result of that conversion therapy was being kicked out of the home at 17 and losing my access to education and housing stability. So, I was out for a very short period of time. I was homeless, but then these two lovely gay men that I met on gay.com, how sketchy, turned out to be lovely and became kind of my parents' community. Let's talk about it. They said, hey, listen, there's this kid who got kicked out from conversion therapy in Washington State in 2004, let's bring him into our home and give him a place to stay, right? So I'm living with these people, and I survived by luck and the grace of God for a while. And shortly in this period, I think I was 20 when I was doing a show. We're both performers, and I was a swing. And
just for people who don't know what swing is, can you tell us what that is?
Oh yeah, that's the person who gets thrown into any role if anyone gets sick. And then I just did a an ensemble track. So I would just play in the ensemble. And the musical, y'all, was chess.
Mm.
Some
What,
people are really excited right now.
yeah. Let me tell you though, y'all, the swing is the hardest worker in the show because they have to learn every single role and they're on stage the least, right?
Well, luckily, I was on stage as the ensemble, and there's
Oh,
no
okay, got
way
it.
I was going to be playing the leads here because I just don't have that range. Maybe
Mm.
Anatoly, but girl. But there was this cellist, and he comes in, and we all love a cellist, right? It's just
Sure.
something about this deep resonant instrument, playing it so
You're
up.
such a nerd.
I love it. And also, I'm a bass baritone. So my voice, that cello, it's just good. So this nerdy tech bro comes in playing this luscious cello, and I fall in love. And also, I was given so much security, and I think that's really important as well. And I can respond to this in two ways. I can feel shame, or I can accept it for what it was at the time, which was I was a high school dropout, feeling housing instability, and this was a kind of a savior complex. And I was really attracted to that security, and it worked for us, and it worked for a couple of years, and we ended up getting married, and it was a beautiful wedding. It was great. But in this journey, I met the GSBA, Greater Seattle Business Association, which I love, and they have you know what I just learned? I can't believe this. I chair this program. And this just shows, that the people who are chairing the programs or leading the work aren't the experts. It's the people that do the work that are the experts, which I also teach about. And they said, Danny, this is the oldest LGBTQIA plus scholarship in the United States. So I
learn something new every day, Danny. You can't know everything.
I know, but that's kind of baseline. But anyways, to the story, the point is when I was a dropout, I reached out to this organization for a scholarship, and they supported me by funding my education all the way up through grad school. So
Wow.
High school, undergrad, grad school, and just an amazing organization. And more so, they became a family, a community of support that saw me through so much. They are the reason I was connected to Senator Elias and Peterson and I. Jamie Peterson, one of our senators, we sang in the men's chorus here in Seattle for a while, but we really connected through the GSBA. They got me my first speaking engagement ever. And I shared my story publicly for the first time with the GSBA. I mean, that's amazing.
Wow.
But Louise, the president at the time, Mark, deputy director, and all of these people became a family. And I ended up joining their board, I want to say something like 8 years ago. And now I chair the scholarship and education program on the executive board, which is really cool. And also speaks to the power of this organization and the power of community. But to go back, 25 is when all of this was kind of coming to a head, right? 25, 28, somewhere in between there, I graduated. I'm not good at the numbers, but I have my master's.
You don't need to be good at numbers. You're just really pretty.
You know what? I'm a psychologist. I'm not a mathematician.
Yes. I always say I'm a life coach that helps gay men free themselves from shame. I'm not a life coach of numbers. Okay?
Yeah, that's right. I love it. I love it. So I bring this up, right? And I'm going on all these tangents. Forgive the ADHD. But high school dropout, meet my husband, was really dependent on him. That was our dynamic. And imagine what that dynamic shifted to when this quiet, shame-filled gay man comes out feeling themselves. By the way, of course, I'm non-binary. I finally found myself in this long-term journey, but finds themselves not only with an education, but now with a career in a Fortune 500, now a Fortune 100, public speaking, and with a very different approach to life and very different expectations from life. And arguably, I changed into a completely different person, and that didn't work out for our marriage. And that's how it works. We were together almost a decade, and I think it's funny. The writing was on the wall probably 5 years before we got divorced, but we just tried to make it work. And I think it, to speak to some of your work, was my Christian backing and shame. That I made a commitment with God. This is my husband. We're going to do this thing. It's terrible. It's not working for us, but I'm going to make it work. And then eventually it wasn't my choice anymore to make it work. And we moved on. And unfortunately, the stalking is directly tied to this. So my ex-husband, I'm gonna play the role of the divorcee, right? Like I've moved on from a lot, but I am a non-binary homosexual male identifying human being, and I love drama. So I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna serve it.
We're here for it.
I know, right? So my ex-husband, so I'm 30, y'all. I just turned 30. Not that that matters. I mean, no. Now I'm 36.
I was gonna say, how dare you?
I know. No, I'm 36. I'm not ashamed of that. But 30, I just turned 30, and my ex-husband just turns 40, and he's going through his stuff. I'm going through my stuff, and the dude leaves me for the much younger next door neighbor. See how I made that extra dramatic just for the sake of, entertainment purposes? But he does. He finds somebody that he's really clicking with, that they have so much in common. And he's in a relationship that doesn't work. And really, this person is probably perfect for my ex-husband. They're now actually married. But at the time, it was very devastating, very disorienting. It was a change that really disrupted life. I had to quickly move out. So I did. And pretty quickly, I start getting calls and texts from the new man, from the new person. Directly. There's no hiding it. It's kind of like one of those things where I would go to my ex and say, with a screenshot, like, dude, why is this? Why he won, right? Like I lost in this. He won, and he's saying like, we got a cat, and he would take pictures of the cat they shared. Or pause. You perceived yourself as losing. Let's just be very clear. You perceived yourself as losing, and they had a cat together. They were not married yet at this point at the story, or were they? No, because I'm still married to him.
Got it.
Right. Like we hadn't even filed for divorce yet. And then when you file in Washington, King County, you got to wait an entire year before it's finalized. But they just jumped right in and were doing the thing and whatever. Within like 3 months, I think they were living together. So all of these things are going on, and yes, perceive myself as losing. Clearly, I didn't lose, but this was going on, and you have a choice in life. It's the curse of knowledge, right? That's what they call it. When you learn information, the curse of knowledge dictates that you either do something with that information or you don't. It's up to you. Now it's
how they say. They say that knowledge is power, and that's false. Knowledge is not power. Implemented knowledge is power. Knowledge, when you do nothing about it, is torture.
Torture. I'm trying to think of if I could put myself in the shoes of my ex, who knew that I was getting these texts, which were not more than emotional harm. Right. So this isn't yet getting into stalking, though it is coming up to the line of stalking with some of the frequency. But the neighbor did other things as well to other people, the new boy, and ended up getting kicked out of he was renting. My ex-husband and I owned our condo. So the renter, the new boy, the future husband who took my place, so to speak, ended up, I'm just going to speak it out. It's not right. This isn't, I haven't shared this in an interview, but I think it's important to the story, is he had this paranoia about me and the upstairs neighbor, and he charged the upstairs neighbor and yelled at her, and to the point that other people were coming out of their apartments and the police were called. And
wait, pause. I need clarification. The person that you're talking about is not the other man, or is it the other man?
The person that charged my upstairs neighbor was the other man.
So in this story right now, there's you, there's your ex, there's the other man,
and now there's an upstairs neighbor.
And now there's an upstairs neighbor. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And he would do these things to a couple other people. But the point of all of this is, this is long story, semi-short, is they got, the person got kicked out of their apartment, had to leave, right? The person upstairs, the neighbor that experienced the charging, brought this person to court and was going to get a restraining order. And I got, I think, a protective order against this person. So they moved. So this is where it gets interesting, because this is where my ex-husband, his new boyfriend, leave and find a new home. My ex-husband didn't need to leave. He owned the condo, but he chose to. That's where they went. So they move into a new house. I start getting more and more pings, but the pings on my cell phone aren't just from the ex, or I mean, not from the ex, from the boyfriend, but now I'm getting these robo-dialers. And this is not technically illegal, though it should be. And there's a lot of conversation in the sphere about this. There are services that you can go out, and I'm not going to name them because I don't want anyone to go out and abuse them. But these websites where you can put in any given number and they will call you, wish you a happy birthday, set up a prank, whatever it might be. And I would just get a slew of these calls in the middle of the night, right? And you're like, oh, well, just turn off your phone. And sure, you turn it back on and you see you have, 100, 300, 500 missed calls, texts, whatever. And you're just, it's just a matter of that weighs on you. And I think, it's funny that the transactional is to turn this off. But knowing that you were left for the neighbor and you're 30 and you just got your life together, you're working at your crushing life, and you have a disruption that really tears things apart. And then also you're getting pings by the person who's now with your current husband, soon to be ex-husband. And in addition to that, getting these ghost phantom dialers that just weighs, it's like blankets. I always use this analogy of blankets. Each little stimulus adds a little bit of pressure and heat, and they all layer on, and they could be the smallest things in the world. But if it's on a big pile, it can compound. And all these things are coming together. That's important to share, because now it is stalking, and it is coming into place for that.
And it's just like, I just want to pause in case y'all, this is wild, because I keep thinking about what you said originally, your perception that he won. Take him, right? Like, take my ex, have the best life, let me move on, let me heal. And the ex's new man, just keeps pressing his thumb in the bruise of your pain over and over and over. For what?
Right. Well, that's how it began, right? So it began with one person who kind of set the stage. So I believed wholeheartedly that all of these spin dialers and everything else, and some of them were appointment reminders that are used by like dentist, doctor, whatever, and with different messaging. I just assumed that came from the same person. I later learned that there was another person involved. So I apologize to everybody. It does get confusing. Let me give you the rundown. There's my ex-husband. There's his boyfriend who texts me, right? And now there's this third party, the person they moved in with when the boyfriend got kicked out of the apartment, and my ex and him moved in with this third person who I ended up knowing. Yeah.
So your ex, his new boy, moved in with a third person.
Yeah.
Introducing a new character in the game of stalker chess, y'all.
That's right. And we don't need to bleep out his name. It's public information. It's been in the headlines. I won't use last names, but I'll use first names, which is Joel, just for sake of ease. So they moved in with this guy named Joel. And here's the thing. I didn't know this up front, but Joel was a friend of mine for, over a decade. He was my ex-husband's best man in our wedding. He went on a cruise with us while he was stalking us. He would end up going to prison for this. I think this is really important too, is we all will meet people in our lives that we have a gut feeling about, that we think to ourselves like, gosh, should I be this person's friend? My friends would say things, and maybe other people listening to this have said this themselves. The worst thing in life is to not have friends and community. Therefore, I'm going to sacrifice my comfort to be kind to this person who's not always kind to me and give myself my friendship to them. And I love community. I love people. I bring people together in my life and work, but not everyone is deserving of your friendship and time. It's not safe. It's the gift of fear. That is a gift. And I think you should listen to your intuition, because we all felt it, but we didn't do anything. So Joel was around for that show where I met my husband, my ex-husband. He was around for our wedding, and he was around, I did theater all over, and he was the pianist, the accompanist for it, right? So I knew Joel very well. We traveled, we were friends. But he was also the kind of person that when I got married to my ex-husband, was so upset that we didn't invite him on our honeymoon that he didn't talk to us for an entire month, and then was passive aggressive.
Say that again. Say that slower in case people didn't hear you.
Joel, who was at our wedding in Hawaii, Maui, it was beautiful, didn't talk to us for a month, and then was passive aggressive to us because we didn't invite him on our honeymoon. That sums him up as a person perfectly. He would do shit like this all the time. And you think at this point, like, I had friends saying, why are you friends with this person? And again, I go back to that previous thing I stated. The worst thing in life is to not have community or friends. That's not true. Not everyone, it's not safe. And not everyone deserves your friendship and your time. We gave it to him, learned my lesson. So anyways, back to the story. They move in with this person. I came to find out about it when I'm in a show, ironically. I give Joel a piece of my mind, to say the least. Now, also, I just want to say, no one's innocent in war. No one's innocent in divorce. My protest behaviors in this divorce were ugly. And that's, you know what? I'm giving myself all the grace in the world, because it was really tough. But I'm also going to own it, right? I didn't do everything well. And I gave Joel a piece of my mind. I cut him off. That was it. And these calls keep coming. So this is a nightly occurrence, y'all. I think that's important to remember, that these things come in nightly. And at this point of the journey, I'm just kind of shrugging it off and saying it's going to end. And that's it. Well, there was one point where this all became physical outside of the digital realm too, and I'm going to talk about that as well. I was doing First Date the Musical, which was workshopped here in Seattle before it went to Broadway. And for those that don't know that show, it's a really good show, especially in a smaller space. It's all about a first date, and the people in the restaurant take on multiple characters. And my character was the gay best friend. He's the, asshole ex-boyfriend. But my point is, in this 90-minute production, you're on stage the entire time in a pretty intimate theater. And for whatever reason, my ex-husband thought it was a great idea to come with his new boyfriend and Joel, his household at the time, and sit in the front row of this theater. And when asked about why the F would you do this, he said, well, we want to come support this cute boy Shane.
Oh my God. Why?
Tone deaf, right? Am I right? By the way, same theater company, Eric. I'm just saying, is the arm wrestle.
Listen, is it tone deaf, or is this just an example of when your feelings about yourself are so intolerable and you don't know what to do with them, so you purge them onto other people? Like, is it tone deaf, or was he in so much pain that he didn't know what to do about it, so he continued to project more pain onto you, because for a moment in causing you pain, he was distracted about the intolerable belief that he is not enough and that he is not worthy of love?
I love that. Yes, put it in a book, put it on the shelf, I'll buy it. That is so real. And that could be, right? It very well could be. But it is. It just is. And the people that enabled this environment, I wasn't going to take the stage because my my not yet ex-husband, my current husband, we just started the divorce process, was sitting in the front row with the person who took my place and the person they moved in with to see another person in the show.
Oh my God.
And the theater company came in, and at the time, this is, y'all, you don't have to lower yourself. They kept saying things like, take the high road. For 2 years of stalking, and we're going to get into the real nasty stuff. And I would still hear this. People would tell me to take the high road. Let me tell you, you don't have to take the high road. That's people being complicit.
Well, pause. You do have to take the high road. Take the high road for yourself.
I love that reframe.
Yeah, setting a boundary does not make you an asshole. Setting a boundary gives you a space, a container to love yourself so that you can further love those around you, period.
Love yourself. I want to highlight on that because at this time, I didn't love myself very much. It's hard to love myself. I had just been divorced. I think that's a common thing people feel about in times of change such as this, where we lose, in this way. It was a huge part of my identity. And I didn't. So hearing this, I just felt so shaken and vulnerable. And I'm angry about it now. I'm angry with myself because I should have stood my ground and said, no one in the world except for this company who's going to have to do some dirty work and be an upstander and not a bystander. That's what this is. They're the only ones losing in the situation. Everyone else is going to have my back and be like, that makes perfect sense. Anyways, I did the show. It was awesome. I didn't fuck it up. It was a great show. I left, and I was stalked that night pretty mercilessly. And this is around the time I start getting death threats. So now it's crossing a line. And also, I told my ex-husband to F off.
Fair.
As you do. Yeah. So
pause. For clarification, you didn't know it was Joel at the time, or did you?
I didn't know it was Joel, but I did know it was coming from inside that house. Not for once did I ever doubt that. Because, and it's tying into this one instance, every time in the future that there would be some kind of interaction with my ex-husband for our divorce or otherwise would be the trigger for stalking. Every single time. And so like these death threats that would come in tied to the divorce. I start now, so I called the police. It was a text message I got one day shortly thereafter. I'm still in Seattle. And it reads, ready to die. And it's said by one of those auto text things, that's pretty untraceable. People use the service to remind people of appointments and things. So it's somebody with access to that. And it says, ready to die. So I call the police. Because I am to your point about that statistic about people fearing for their life, I am fearing for my life. Somebody has the energy to stay up all night or at least arrange for truly now probably thousands of interactions on my phone. This household has come to see me in person and sat in the front row. By the way, they were moved to the back row, but the new boy had to be physically moved by my ex-husband to the back row. Didn't want to do it. I just think that's important. So yes, I'm fearing for my life when I get a death threat. So I call the police, the officer shows up, and here's part of the problem. Not only was a police report not taken, in fact, I can't find one police report that was filed in conjunction with my case for anything that I reported. And I reported a lot. Somebody went to prison with a felony, but it was never, there's nothing. I cannot find it. It's not there. Incident reports that don't become police reports, sure. No police reports. And to quote Judge Judy, gosh, I wish I had my mug. It says, no one judges me but Judy. Judge Judy says, and I say this every time because I'm a nerd, if there's no police report, it didn't happen. And those
Did you know at the time, did you ask to file a police report and they didn't, or did you not think about it at the time, which would be fair?
No, I asked for that police report. Now, I didn't probably ask for it the first time.
Sure.
because it was scary. But yes, as we went on and on and on, I absolutely asked for that police report and advocated for it. This ready to die text, though, to go back there, call the police, the officer shows up and says to me the dumbest thing I've ever heard, which is, somebody's probably messing with you, and it's not really a death threat, it's more of a question. I know. It's like, and I like to see all perspectives here, right? Nobody comes to work and says, I'm going to be ineffective at my job. Well, okay. Many of us come to work and say, I'm not going to be ineffective at my job. Right? We want to do something. I think people that come into this, I truly believe that officer joined that profession to better his world and better the world around him, right? I see the full person, and I think that's important because it's not a one-person problem. This is a systemic issue. This is a bigger issue than one cop. And the problem is, which will come up later, is that we are not resourced to fight cyber crime. We are not resourced to fight stalking. And so we are extra not able and resourced to fight cyber stalking.
I was going to say, this question of it's probably just a prank, or that dives into work that you do, Danny, that I do. That dives into neurology and potential. A therapist might be able to handle that question better. Police people are not equipped to handle, it sounds like, cyber stalking.
Well, they're not equipped to handle it. Sure. They don't have the resources to handle it. They don't have, I'll give you another example. So I got an email with a very similar death threat that came to my house. And also what started were sex ads. We got to talk about that too. Craigslist was a thing around there, with the personal ads that was still going on. And my number, my information, my photo, my likeness was all blasted around, not just in Seattle, but around the entire country, looking for some really horrible things that said, this is where I live, this is my number, come infect me with HIV, I have a rape fantasy.
Oh, pause.
Right.
This is crazy. So they that makes you sound like you have to pay for it, but they put up, Craigslist ads with was your photo included?
Oh, yeah.
Photo, yes. Details, address, saying that you want to be infected with HIV. Come infect me with your personal information on it.
With my personal information on it. And it's interesting because then I get this email that's another death threat. And I figure out how to pull an IP address off of an email. And it was probably a VPN anyways. But I did it, and it showed that it was coming from White Center, a neighborhood in Seattle. Well, guess who lives in White Center? My ex-husband, his boyfriend, and Joel. So I know that it's there. So I call in another officer. I say, hey, look at this email. I'm starting to keep receipts of these things. I have an Excel spreadsheet that links to screenshots of every single thing that I started keeping in printout form, which is something everyone should do if they're experiencing stalking. Get it off of the computer, but keep a log. And I brought it up to this officer, and his question was, what's an IP? That is my point. Yes, maybe not resourced to deal with it on a psychology perspective, but also on a technical experience. They're not trained to fight the crimes of today.
And pause. If you are listening and you say, what's an IP or what's a VPN? It's okay. You don't have, that's the point. There's no shame here. It's just the thought of, you shouldn't have to know. You shouldn't have to be a detective and a tech guru in order to prevent yourself from being murdered from a Craigslist ad.
I don't mean to laugh, but yes. Snaps. I mean, something clearly needs to change because I'm getting death threats, I'm getting spin dialers, I'm getting sex ads. And it's also on Scruff and Grindr. And I'm going to just give a shout out to Scruff. There's a lot that's happening in the world. Tinder, Hinge, a couple others have, privacy protection. You can run background checks on people. There's all sorts of great things. Check out the security features. Scruff was really on top of this. When I reported out that somebody was using my likeness, they couldn't do much about it, but they were very engaged and they were very communicative. And I found that to be very, very helpful and just a peace of mind.
At least you felt heard by someone.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes, I felt heard because I wasn't being seen or heard by the cops, even though they were doing the best with what they had, right? And all of this. Now, I'm going to skip ahead in the story. This goes on and on and on. And what eventually happened is that it really hijacked my life. Again, what's really interesting, Eric, is you and I tell these stories, and this is, I love this because I can, look at you in the eye and we can have this moment where it's like none of the listeners exist. It's like, it's just you and me. We tell these stories about our lives. And so many times we share about conversion therapy or whatever, and they think happily ever after. Right. And that's not true. And, I call it peaks and valleys sometimes. Life continues. And once again, after finding my groove and I was feeling really successful and I was on that mountain, and very quickly with the stalking, I plummeted into a deep, dark valley with this. And I just, the reality is that I didn't have the capacity to be my full self. It was hijacked. So I was laid off, tied to performance, sure, but laid off, from my job here in Seattle. And I was just kind of over it at this point. By this point, I was thinking, like, I need to get out of Seattle. I got to move. So I moved 60 miles to the south to a small town, got a job there, which actually ended up being a really good move for my career. Really, I had the best boss I've ever had. Shout out to Jeanette. Love her. She's my mentor. And I changed my number. I bought a new computer, bought a new phone. And also, I think the other thing that's really interesting is I was currently advocating against conversion therapy while this was going on, sharing my testimony in the Senate. That's the other part about this. 2 years of stalking was also the last 2 years of the battle to ban sexual orientation change efforts.
Wow.
So I'm being actively stalked with death threats and sex ads. My name is being dragged through the mud. I'm still holding my board position up here in Seattle, so I'm commuting. I'm working a new job. And on my lunch breaks, I'm actually going over to the Capitol, which was, a couple blocks away, to testify at our Senate and then going back to work. There was a lot. It was a lot. And 2018, conversion therapy finally was banned. Senate Bill 5722, Senator Elias, thank you. And
to be clear, y'all, the fight is not over. We're talking about one state.
Right.
Good work. I'm not invalidating your experience, but amazing work that you've done, and also to be continued. You and I should have another conversation about conversion therapy for another podcast, because I think that would be very valuable.
We have to. 22 states still have it legalized, and 3 uphold it in their highest laws and their highest courts. So it's very hard to ban. And conversion therapy still happens in Washington State. It's just happening privately, and it's happening out of compliance. And people are getting reported. It's still happening, and it's happening in Seattle. It just, people need to know that. At this time, though, the HRC flew out. People flew out. I'm in USA Today. This is all these things coming out. We're having these conversations. And that pissed off my stalker.
Wow. Y'all, what started as a light conversation between a couple of friends very quickly took a deep, dark turn. And you were here for the ride. And y'all, that was just part 1. You're going to have to come back next week to hear part 2 of Danny's story. It gets crazier. And the crazier the story gets, the more and more resilient Danny becomes. I'm so proud to be able to call this person my friend. I'm just It's not often that I'm speechless, but I'm speechless right now. Like I said, we split this up into 2 episodes because it's worthy of that. So come back next week for some more. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of Danny's story, and we will see you next week.